Welcome, and thanks for listening to this week's episode of
The Milk Production.
The Milk Production.
We're talking about the production of milk. Okay, well, let's go. All right, ready? I'm Russ Rakestraw, co-host. Failed appliance repairman. There's going to be a lot of inside jokes today, I think. Sorry, folks. Welcome to the show.
I'm Megan Selke. I am your co-host for the Milk Production. Happy you're here. Mother of 5 and lover of learning.
Indeed, you are. So, we've had an interesting week. We actually missed last week's episode, which is bad because we wanted
bad form.
We want to do 100 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wait, time out.
Okay.
Before we talk about our failed last week attempt, I want you to tell me about the failed, what did you call it? Appliance repairman?
Appliance repairman.
Just a high-level overview.
Long story short, we had a washing machine fail, and I knew what failed. It was a bearing, and there's a plentiful resources on the internet on how to fix this for our particular washer. But for a number of reasons, I was not successful in fixing it, and so I just ended up making a big mess and having to buy a new washer anyway.
So my favorite part is that we got the new washer into the house and that we could not get the washer up our old tiny stairs.
Yeah. Another lesson learned.
But I won't just blame it on the old tiny stairs. I'm not as strong as the typical movers of these things. I'm just not. So.
Well, we've got somebody coming tonight. We've got some hired muscle, two hired muscles, and these guys come highly suggested, though I've never met them, but they both look like linemen.
Oh, you have a picture.
Yeah. So I think we'll be good here.
Is that part of their application? Like, look, the muscle is there.
Look how large we are. We think we can get your tiny little washer up puny little stairs.
Teeny tiny stairs.
Yeah.
One level.
So we missed last week.
Yes.
Because of HFM.
I recently read a book. This is a tangent. I'm sorry. I recently read a book called The Museum of Failures. I feel like this is our episode of failures. Yes, we failed with a washing machine. Mm-hmm. Yes, we failed to get our episode done last week.
That's right. But what we did not fail is getting our youngest child through hand, foot, and mouth, which, Lord, there were nights.
Pies, mano, boca.
I mean, like sleep apnea.
Yeah, that was scary.
Where we were just basically up all night listening to him breathe in the monitor.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, even he climbed into our bed at one point because it was so scary. And then that wasn't any better. So he would be laying next to me. And I am not exaggerating when I say, okay, I would fall asleep for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then he would do the, and then long pause. And I was like.
His tonsils were a picture things that are normally pink, like a bright pink. Picture them bright red. But you can barely tell they're
just on the
red.
edges.
Yeah, because they're covered in white.
Yeah.
And his tonsils were touching.
Yeah.
Like, how do you breathe?
When your tonsils are touching.
Tonsils that are touching. I don't even know how he got it. I mean, I got to give him credit.
Yeah. Well, and he was stuffy, and it was just.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
He obviously didn't want to eat anything. But man, when that pediatrician said, okay, give him ice cream, popsicles, whatever, you and I were both like, phew. Like, we usually have to be the good guys. Now we can just give him whatever he'll eat. Perfect. That's easier, right? And he did. He had a few of those, but, he wasn't crazy about eating, period. Mm-hmm. But the one thing Jackson will always do is nurse.
That's right.
And he did not.
I was wondering how we were going to get this back to lactation, but you just got it right back in there. That's good. That's strong work. He will always nurse.
Lactation is life.
I guess so. I was going to say, though, it's funny that we put him on in order to cure his HFM, we put him on a high-fat, high-sugar, low-fiber diet.
Which is the antithesis of everything that we know is healthy and good.
Exactly. Normally we're plying him with fiber, not a lot of sugar.
But to be fair, there was that little stretch of something like 8 hours where he didn't pee, and we got a little nervous because he just wasn't staying hydrated and didn't want to nurse.
I don't want to go off script here, but can you talk a little bit about how, breast milk has antibodies in it.
Yes.
And that's different than taking an antibiotic,
Yes.
right? An antibiotic wouldn't necessarily help with a hand, foot, and mouth, which is a virus.
Right.
But the antibodies in your breast milk can help with the body fight off a virus.
Yeah. Excellent.
Because you already have HFM antibodies in your body, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So you get a virus, any sort of infection, and you build an immune response to it. You, me. And actually, we could go on a very nerdy scientific tangent here, which is that even, for example, my grandparents would have been exposed to certain antibodies, and those things can flow through generations, which I find very fascinating.
I do too, but not just through breast milk, through genetics.
Yes, yes. So similarly, and because it's always good to remember breast milk is considered a product of blood, right? So you're getting those things that you have in your blood, which is what we call genetics or DNA or, a million different components that are contributing to our health and genetic health history and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I was sad that he wouldn't nurse, not because, I'm way past the point of feeling like engorged if he doesn't nurse. We usually nurse twice a day, sometimes in the middle of the day if he's not feeling well or if he's having a hard time with something or if he gets his tubes put in his ears, those sort of unique situations. But generally speaking, it's morning and night, and it's not for an extended period. There's not much in there, but there's milk in there. So the reason why I was sort of disappointed that he wasn't nursing is because what happened, and we may have talked about this before, but when baby latches, there's backwash essentially. It's not quite like that, but there's backwash. And the saliva goes into the breast as well, transmits signals that say, hey, I've been exposed to this bacteria or virus, give me your treatment. And then it comes forward in the milk and is healing for baby. And the IgA antibodies, which are the ones that are extremely helpful in fighting off lots of common viruses or illnesses or that kind of thing, they last about 3 hours, which in the first year-ish of life, babies are supposed to be eating every 3 hours. So they're exposed to IgAs with some frequency to keep that level up enough to be fighting these viruses, which is why breastfed babies tend to get less sick than babies who are not fed with breast milk because they have this constant exposure to these antibodies.
God. I can't imagine that child being more sick than he's been.
I know. But you have to remember, it's one specific thing. It was the ears, right? And that's it.
Those ears.
Yeah, but
those are fixed now.
I know. Yeah, and then I say it's the one specific thing. And then as soon as, what is it, a month after he gets his, shortly
tubes
less
in.
than a month after he gets his tubes in,
he gets a pretty nasty virus.
HFM, yeah. So, not ideal.
Now we're right back to just good old-fashioned seasonal allergies.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, I'm happy to report all of this research and statistics about what breastfeeding can do for the health of your baby and for the health of you. But both of my older boys, Aiden and Everin, they had my breast milk, and they have terrible seasonal allergies, which is also supposed to be something that you get less risk of having.
Still.
There's
a lot of other factors at play, and it could be worse.
There are, and genetically speaking, they're predisposed to significant allergies.
Yeah.
My dad has terrible allergies. I have terrible allergies. It's just some things are not overcomable by the magic liquid gold, and it's fine. It's still immensely powerful.
To use
in a ton
car
of other
terms,
ways.
like some people have a Toyota and some people have a Ford, and even if you have a good mechanic, you still have a Ford.
Well, the silver lining of the story of Jackson having the hand, foot, and mouth is that he was actually, so he started his fever Sunday, was in the throes of it for those first few days. Those first few days were very tough. By Wednesday, he was still in pain, but his fever had decreased significantly. So, long story short, he was home on Wednesday. He is not usually home on Wednesdays when we record our episodes, and so we did not get to record our episode last week, which is why we're so excited to be back this week, and why, despite our washing machine appliance drama, we have to set time aside and make this happen, because worth doing.
One more side note on washing machines. When you have 7 people in your household, just a few days of the washing machine not working creates a laundry backlog that I'm very concerned about. As the primary laundry doer, I'm thinking about a trip to the laundromat.
You know, I mean...
Haven't done that since college. Thinking it's time to do it again.
Get it all done at once.
Yeah.
It's easy that
They
way. I mean,
have
until
those big
until you're folding it all.
Super-size washers.
Yeah, until you're folding it all, and then it's just
Yeah,
an absolute
I
nightmare.
don't need a machine to fold it. I am a folding machine.
We're all very much looking forward to that, having our washing machine back.
For sure.
So today, our little topic du jour is, we've touched on a little bit about the antibodies and those types of things, which, by the way, I mean, we could spend an entire podcast dedicated to breaking down the components in breast milk. But another sort of interesting subject is how we make milk and how
We don't. We
humans,
don't. We don't.
mammals,
Mammals.
even mammals,
Mammals.
Okay.
But not we.
No, not we.
Just so everyone's clear. I have. I don't make breast milk.
So and this is good for moms who are maybe pregnant and listening, or maybe you have a friend who's pregnant and you're conveying good information to them or whatever. Probably the very most important component that we can understand about how milk making works postpartum when the baby's around is, we always call it a supply and demand system, but as one of my coworkers pointed out, it really is more of a demand and supply system. And, that's just speaking to the fact that the demand must come first.
Yeah, to drive the supply.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting is you can get milk even when babies don't breastfeed. So, for example, mom chooses formula feeding. Okay, cool, you're going to formula feed, but that does not mean that your milk's not going to come in. And it can come in strong. And you can have engorgement and all that kind of thing. So my cousin, I remember when she had her son, she decided she wanted to formula feed, knew that from the beginning, knew that the milk might come in, so had a plan based on the guidance that was provided at the time to use cabbage leaves, which, by the way, is absolutely something that works.
Oh, it does work. It's not a wives' tale.
It's not a wives' tale. However,
I'm picturing a cabbage bra right now. Just the hilarity of a cabbage bra, like the way you get, an unwitch at Jimmy John's, only with cabbage.
Well, the part that stuck out to me about what she said is that she just walked around smelling like cabbage leaves all the time, and she hated it, and it was cumbersome and just gross and annoying and all that kind of thing. And the frustrating part, looking back, is that there were so many other things that she could have done to comfortably dry up her supply. And
Sudafed.
Like Sudafed, ding, ding, ding. Sudafed, peppermint tea, all the things that we talk about sort of staying away from when you're trying to build a good, strong supply.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and
Sage.
thyme.
Yeah.
I thought parsley too.
No, not parsley. You
Just sage.
You always do.
I think this is going to become a regular bit. Go ahead.
Parsley is safe. The parsley industry is
Sage.
going to start coming after you.
Oh, God.
Like, we are safe for breastfeeding
You
women.
don't want to anger big parsley. Let me tell you. You have those McCormick hitmen coming after you.
Oh, man. So sage tea, which, by the way, sounds just disgusting to me. I've never had it, but that does not sound like how I would choose to do it. I'd probably go strong on peppermint. One of the pediatricians I work with, and accessed the recesses of my brains when she said this, I do remember reading this somewhere, was recommending to a mom the other day Altoids.
Oh, because they're such strong in peppermint. Yeah.
Yeah. And it does work. Altoids work. And that woman just had an oversupply, so we were kind of trying to bring that down.
Yeah.
But so back to sort of how it starts. It starts even in pregnancy. Your breasts start developing the things you need in it to make milk, and you start actually making milk before you have your baby. And I was recently talking to my other cousin. Her and her wife are expecting, and I think they were probably maybe they were a little surprised to learn. I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. But we started talking about antenatal milk harvesting, which is, again.
Sounds like something from a dystopian novel.
Where the people.
How's today's milk harvest?
That's the best voice you've done on here.
I am like picturing a line of moms on the machines that cows are on in some dystopian future.
Hey, do you remember that clip we released about how you can't assimilate moms to cows?
Yes, that's why I'm saying dystopian. I'm associating it with dystopia, okay? It's allowed. It's allowed when you say it's a bad thing. What I'm envisioning. Milk harvesting.
So it sounds weird.
Think about it. That's actually what we do with poor mom cows.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's what we do kind of
Goats.
with pumping, right? I mean,
Cats.
or even, okay.
Fokker.
What's his name? Yeah,
Greg Fokker.
Okay,
Milks
Greg.
Cats.
Okay, Greg.
Okay, I'm being too distracting today. Go ahead. Continue.
No, it's fine. This episode's a total failure.
It's the failure episode.
Yeah, so milk harvesting is the term. Sounds really weird, but the idea is you begin making colostrum while you're pregnant. And there's so many unique situations that can happen with your baby after delivery that if you're still in the colostrum phase or you're not making a lot of colostrum and you haven't switched over, which we'll talk about all the terminology for this, but if you don't have enough milk to satisfy baby, that can present in a couple ways. Blood sugar can decrease. Temperature regulation can be difficult. They don't wake up to feed as much because they have less energy. Jaundice can come about because we need the baby to poop to get the bilirubin out. So otherwise it pools in the stool and gets reabsorbed into the body. So these things that you hear about, they happen frequently. It's not like these things aren't manageable. It's just that when they happen in those first 24, 48 hours of life, they're just really stressful.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, maybe in the hospital, maybe you've done a home birth, whatever it is, and things are getting harder by the hour. It's stressful. And when you have antenatally harvested your colostrum, or an easier way to say it is hand expressed your colostrum before you have the baby, you're able to use that to help baby through those periods. Because if your volume is not where you want it to be and baby needs something, okay, why wouldn't you just use formula? Depends on your choice. Maybe you just do use formula. Maybe that's the choice you want to do for you. But if you don't want to use formula, or if you're on the fence, some reasons why you wouldn't is it permanently changes the gut microbiome, which we recently talked about. Colostrum is really important for the development of baby's immune system in that it goes into the gut, it fills these gaps in baby's intestines, lines it, and then as the milk is coming in, like we talked about with the probiotics and the prebiotics and everything that needs to go into baby's gut to help it flourish and protect it and all that kind of stuff, that is what's happening with the colostrum, and it's a different experience with the formula. Not to mention, colostrum is a diuretic, not diuretic, diuretic, meaning it pushes the stool out. And so
helping to get rid of that bilirubin.
Exactly. And the meconium. So the meconium being the first stool.
Yeah.
That's that yucky tarry stuff.
Yeah.
That's all in there. And when babies start to poop in the first couple days, we want that to move relatively quickly, and the colostrum is there to help push that out. It also has vitamin A, which is great from an immune system perspective. I mean, there's so many good things about the colostrum that it's normal for you to experience a dip in colostrum right after baby's first feed.
Yeah.
And then it can take a little while for that to increase again. So it's nice if you're building up a little stash beforehand to have this thing that you can use to carry you through that time where you're waiting for your milk to
Talk me through, because I know colostrum is not, you don't ever make a ton of it.
Right.
So what's the volume of harvested colostrum? 3 ounces, 4 ounces?
No, God, no, it's milliliters. So you might hand express 1 milliliter. You might
Okay.
hand express 2-3 milliliters.
Okay.
Very small.
Yeah.
But that's okay because what you expect baby to take in a feed during the first day might be anywhere between 2 and 5 milliliters. I mean, no, these aren't significant amounts.
By the way, do you guys like how me, the non-scientist, is talking in standard terms and she's talking in metric terms? I'm talking ounces, she's talking milliliters. Now we have to do some conversion. I'm a little bit country, she's a little bit rock and roll.
Okay, so for everyone who is like, okay, I speak ounces too, an ounce is about 30 milliliters.
Yeah,
So-
it gives you an idea of just how
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
we're talking about there, right?
right. Significantly less than,
We're talking about maximum maybe 1 dose of baby
yeah.
baby ibuprofen.
Well,
And
and
I
that's
use that
even for
measurement
our
as
big, that's
reference
for
'cause-
our over 24 pounders, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes obviously significantly less than that, but yes, that's a good reference point. For babies who are old enough to take medication, it's somewhere within that range of the dosages for the first 2 years. So little syringe, right? And I think they even are commonly selling them in the 1 milliliter syringes because you also don't want to look at it and be like, I have a 1 ounce bottle and there's drops at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
That's totally normal and good. That's what we want. That's what we expect. That's what we should be excited about.
Right.
But it can be very depressing to look at that and see only drops, and it can make you feel like you're not making enough and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that changes. So first of all, caveat all of this with you should not do antenatal colostrum harvesting without speaking with your OBGYN, or if you're working with a maternal fetal medicine specialist, those types of people, because they'll know your risk factors. And if you are at risk for delivering early, or they're really trying to make sure they push you out as far as possible, what they'll likely tell you is don't start doing it before 37 weeks. And after that, it's okay.
Why you could bring about birth doing
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah. Nipple stimulation triggers a hormone series of events that can eventually lead to contraction of the uterus, which can bring on the onset of labor.
So, you know what I think would be useful for the fellow laymen such as myself that are listening to the show? Can we kind of go over some terminology that you use when you talk about milk production?
Yeah. So you have different phases. So when you talk about milk production, you want to understand breast growth and how breasts grow, when milk comes in, and when it goes away. Understanding the lifespan of the breast as it relates to milk production. Mammogenesis is the term you use to talk about what happens as your breasts develop in childhood, adolescence, even in adulthood, how your breasts are developing and changing. Lactogenesis 1 it starts at the 16th week, and that is when you start to have what we call secretory differentiation. And that's when the cells in the breast start to form into cells that are going to be able to make milk. And that's really the beginning of the milk making process.
Yeah. And when does that happen?
It starts in the 16th week and it continues throughout pregnancy.
Okay.
And that's why we get colostrum before we deliver the baby, because that milk making functionality is being set up so that when we have that baby, we can hit go. That's why sometimes when you have moms who have babies in the NICU, they have their baby at 28 weeks or something. Yes, it can cause a delayed onset to their milk coming in, but sometimes they just start making milk right away. You know, their body's like, okay, we're doing this. But generally speaking, the next phase, lactogenesis 2, secretory activation, is what happens somewhere between 30 and 72 hours after you've had the baby. So what happens right away after you have the baby is your progesterone levels go down. And your progesterone is actually inhibiting the production of larger amounts of milk. So your progesterone levels are going down. Your prolactin and oxytocin from feeding the baby frequently and skin to skin and all those things are going up and contributing to...
Those two things are hormones as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Prolactin and
prolactin and oxytocin.
Oxytocin.
Yeah. So in this period where now you're in secretory activation, which is the ducts are going to crank out some milk, your 30 to 72 hour, you're changing from smaller amounts like the 2 to 5 milliliters that we're talking about. And it is a gradual change. It feels a lot of times like it's a light switch because your breasts start to feel very full by day 3. A lot of time that's what we hear is day 3, your breasts are full, you feel like you're engorged. Somewhere between day 3 and 5, you might have that sensation. But what's been happening inside the breast during that time is that the volume has been changing from maybe 2 to 5 milliliters the first day to 10, 15 milliliters the second day to 20, 25, 30 milliliters the third day until now, okay, at 2 to 4 ounces, you're really starting to feel full in your breast and giving that sensation of engorgement.
20 milliliters.
Yeah, look at that fast conversion. So that's the secretory activation when you're going into higher volumes of milk production. And what's happening is you're switching from endocrine control of milk making in the secretory differentiation phase to autocrine control of milk making.
A whole damn other system?
Yeah.
Boy.
The idea is it's just hormones driving it in the first part, like before you have the baby, and then for the first part afterward, to demand and supply driving it after you have the baby. And that's why, and the research proves out, the first 3 to 5 days are so important to making sure that you get a robust supply down the line. Because
it's probably not coincidence that the first 3 to 5 days are super important in terms of touching the baby and having skin on skin contact and things like that. It's almost like they go hand in hand because they're so critical to the baby's development that your body's going to kind of get that any way it can.
Yes. Yeah. And so just as a side note, because we always have tangents, one of the things that I think is always really important to remind people is that you can help babies' blood sugar level stabilize or stay at a high enough level postpartum, even if you're not making colostrum and you're doing skin to skin. Just being skin to skin with mom is helping baby's blood sugar level regulate.
Does it work with dads?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think so. I think skin to skin in general helps them. I know skin to skin in general.
With the connection.
Yeah, and it helps with the connection. It helps with the microbiome.
With how about that Russian study where they found that like a baby can die if it's not touched?
Yeah.
It can have all the nutrients it needs and everything, but it can perish if it's not touched.
Yeah, I know.
How they came about that
I know, that's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But can I do my own tangent? I have a quick question for you. Now you can, even without being pregnant, without ever have been pregnant, being pregnant, you can instigate milk production, right?
You can. It's easier to relactate than it is to initiate lactation without having been pregnant.
Yeah.
But you can.
Theoretically, it's possible.
So
that's not the endocrine system at all. That's just that.
Well, it depends. So sometimes you use drugs that help drive up those
oxytocin and
hormones.
Prolactin.
Yes. And actually, I think you need the progesterone in the early days to help develop the system.
Oh, okay.
So it's progesterone. And then as you're sort of switching over and beginning to make milk, then it's sort of trying to get the prolactin and oxytocin, which is going to come from actually snuggling the baby and feeding it.
I'm just thinking how those guys in our dystopian future would have, more moms, or more females.
There is a way. Milk. Yes, there is a way. What I think you're really getting at is that eventually one day we could run the world without men. I'm just kidding. We love you and need you. I mean, I have 5 boys. That's not my ideal.
We haven't figured out a way for the reproductive process to happen with that. So I don't know how you'd have the next generation of people.
Well,
without, we'll see.
Yeah. I'm kidding. I'm very much kidding, obviously. A mother of 5 boys, that's not my ideal at all.
I hope not.
That's to say nothing of my husband.
Which he often does.
Hey!
Just kidding.
Episode of failures. So I think it's important to mention, as it relates to the breast and lactation, your terminal developmental phase is called involution, which is the weaning process, and where now we had this system that created milk and now we've got to shut it down, and that can take about 40 days, for some people longer, but that's after your last expression of milk, and then that milk is reabsorbed into the body, the system is shut down. But it's not entirely gone because subsequent children reignite the system again. So anyways, I just kind of wanted to talk in broad strokes about the natural progression of milk onset, expression, and involution, and the very important fact that the first 3 to 5 days are just so crucial for on-demand feeding. Just if that baby's moving mouth or hand or anything, or stirring, just feed that baby. It can feel like a lot, but it is just so impactful for your long-term supply. And then remember that demand is driving the supply. And with those really important factors, hopefully everyone will go on to feel like, with those basic principles, it'll get you started.
Yeah, I was thinking about demand a little bit, and I was thinking, going back to the earlier part of the conversation, hand, foot, and mouth. I've never heard a bad latch. I didn't realize you could hear a bad latch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And today's episode's not about latching, but it is about, to your point, that demand drives the supply. And if you got a bad latch, you're not going to have that demand. Mm-hmm. And again, harkening back earlier to the conversation, our little guy had hand, foot, and mouth, and it was affecting his ability to latch. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting next to Megan, and she said, "Do you hear that? That clicking is him not being able to latch because he couldn't breathe through his nose." So he kind of had a choice. Which do I need more, oxygen or milk?
He was slipping and trying to breathe, so he was clicking, and he would poor guy, grab on and then lose the latch, breathe, grab back on, lose the latch, breathe, grab back on.
Yeah, poor guy. So it was interesting. When I think about a bad latch, I think about something that is very difficult to diagnose without getting your fingers in there and feeling odd things. But I mean, is it always audible, a bad latch?
No, that's a good question. And you're absolutely right that the audible ones are easier. It's very, that's a cue. If you have clicking or visible cues are them sliding off or trying to get on and coming off, right? In the newborn phase, you're going to see it. Parents are like, I don't understand. This baby looks like it wants to just eat me when it's moving its head all around the nipple and the breast, but it's like, it's right there. Why aren't you clamping down on it? And that's where I always go into, if this is baby's mouth and this is mom's nipple, this is the roof of the mouth, this is mom's nipple, the nipple has to go up to the roof of the mouth. And that palate is much higher than we really think of it, especially in babies.
How many people are taking their tongue?
Feeling the palate right now. Well, I was trying to do it while I was talking, and I decided that on a podcast it was probably better for me to keep talking. Yeah. So that's the idea, is that you want to get the nipple up to the roof of the mouth. So I always tell moms, when you're seeing that visual cue of baby just bobbing around, and they're so cute, their necks are so strong, and you just are amazed by how much movement they can do. But it's also very frustrating because it's like, that nipple is right there. Your mouth is on it. Why are you not just going to town? And then I'll be like, hey, do you mind if I let them suck on my finger real quick? I put my finger in their mouth and they suck on it right away. That's a cue that likely mom's nipple is not getting to the roof of the mouth. Myriad reasons why that occurs. If you can adjust it, we'll just say this simply, if you can adjust it so that you're pushing more of your breast tissue into the mouth so that the nipple is reaching the roof of the mouth, you can quickly fix that and baby will latch on and start sucking, because babies have a suck reflex on the roof of their mouth. And that's why when I do an oral exam, if I put the soft part of my finger up to the roof of the mouth, they start sucking right away.
It's like a crocodile. When they have their mouth open and they have that super sensitive mouth. No, not when we're talking about breasts. Okay. Inappropriate breasts. Inappropriate.
Oh, that's horrifying. But a lot of times when you have a painful latch, it can be that way for moms. There's this innate reaction of, okay, this has been painful when you are latching because you're compressing the nipple. It's not deep enough where it needs to be. And so there's this toe curling, flinching pain that happens and you're pulling away, which is actually continuing the cycle of baby not getting deep enough. And it's all thing. So long story short, aim that nipple behind baby's nose and try to really push as much breast tissue in it there as you can. If you hear clicking, try to adjust it while you're on. So use your thumb to push more of your breast tissue, bring baby closer into you. And if those things don't resolve it, break the latch and try to get a deeper one. And if those things don't resolve it, talk to a lactation consultant.
Yeah. Well, I think real practical advice is something we should probably try to do more of in this podcast. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you did that today. And I think it's a good place to end for
Yeah,
today.
that's a wrap, folks.
Yeah. So thanks very much for your time on today's failure episode.
Yeah, hopefully that's a wrap on all our failures too.
Well, let's call it that. Thanks for your time, everybody. I really appreciate it. Once again, my name is Russ Rakestraw. Thanks for joining us this week for this week's milk production. Please comment, like, subscribe. But of all those, honestly, we're not trying to drive revenue here. So comments, if you could only pick one, comments. Yeah, tell us what you'd like to hear. Tell us what annoys you. Tell us how we can be better. We want to reach as many people as we can, and to do that, we have to produce compelling content, and you can help us do that. So, of all those, comment, like, subscribe. Please comment.
Love it. Thanks for harping on that. So next week we will get right back on track and have one of our guests, that spotlight we had originally talked about, the feeding frenzy. Hoping to have a guest that we can dive into some of the things she faced, how she overcame them, and inspire some people to do some good stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you, Megan.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
See you next week.
Take care.